What's up, you damn gorgeous and beautiful gamers? Welcome back to RPJames, this Mariel corner in the internet where we like to discuss about RPGs. If you like the content, if you like to have these conversations with RPJames, I would very much like to invite you. Hit that like button because it really helps me like you have no idea. And also, most of the people that watch my content are in fact not subscribed to my channel. You're already here, dude. I know that you came back, so might as well take the time to actually subscribe to the channel and keep having these conversations with RPJames. That being said, again, this video took way too much editing to make, way too much planning to make, so I would very much appreciate if you show some love to this video, comment. Also, the ranking, it took way too much to rank these weapons, and I know that you might have your very own ranking. This is just mine. If you have your very own ranking, then do let me know in the comments below what that is. Another little disclaimer, I am not going to be ranking the dragon spears like both of Grandsax in this specific ranking, because as you can see, it doesn't have any kind of fate scaling. It might seem to you as a fate weapon due to its weapon art, weapon skill, but it's still just a basic dexterity weapon. Same from the Dragon King's Blade. I do not remember the name. I have it in my inventory, but they are not included in this specific ranking. That being said, let's begin with the D tier Earthsteel dagger. It has very low physical base damage, and since it already has some low physical base damage, it also has low scaling on all of the elements that it has, like strength, dexterity, and fate. The scaling is really low, so when you have low base damage and low scaling, it's just useless. It's just a useless thing. It doesn't have any kind of status ailments, which daggers actually would be benefiting from bleeding or status ailments. But also the skill, it's quick step. You can place an Ash of War into this thing, but do bear in mind that the Ash of War is going to increase its damage from like the AR of the weapon. It's not going to be that huge in this one. Now if we move on over to the Black Knife, oh boy, this is a B, definitely. The weapon art of this thing, it's actually nothing to be messed around with. Notice how far away from me the enemy is. I'm thinking that, no, not enough. But it still has a pretty damn good range, as you were able to see there. It has huge damage, the weapon art, weapon skill. It also inflicts black flame damage over time. It has an amazingly cool dexterity scaling of B and C and Fade, so this is amazing for hybrid builds. Moving on, we have the Miquellan Knight Sword. This is a D. You see, it has D on all of the scaling that it has. It has some nice physical base damage, don't get me wrong. AR is not that bad. It's not amazing, but it's not that bad. But the weapon art that it has, it's just like Sacred Blade. And Sacred Blade, let me tell you, it's not that good. It's not bad, but it's nothing like too special. There's nothing too special about it. And if you would like to use Sacred Blade, you would be better off using it on a better scaling weapon. You cannot change the skill from this weapon, so there's nothing special about this sword. Golden Epitaph. Again, this is a D. This one has better scaling on Fade, but it's still a C, dude. It's nothing special. That's not that huge of an increment. It also has less base damage than the Miquellan Knight Sword, and it has last rites. It's nice to increment your damage and defense, but again, Golden Bow would be way too much better, and you could very well use last rites as a spell yourself, so there's nothing too special about these weapons. Also, straight swords are not that good as they used to be on Dark Souls 3, so yeah, there is really nothing special about these weapons. coated sword. Now this is an interesting one. I was actually debating quite a lot about this one, but this ends up being a C. It has amazing fade scaling. It has an A on scaling on fade, but the base damage on holy, it's just 195. So this is not going to reach that much of a huge damage. The weapon skill, it's actually quite nice. It's going to pierce through shields. So you might argue that it could break a little bit the poking meta on PvP, but it's just too predictable in PvP. And in PvE, it doesn't really give you that much of hyper armor, so you're most likely going to get interrupted while trying to make this thing. It has nice damage, but it's a niche kind of weapon. I don't know. You might actually make it work. It's a very, very cool looking weapon, but when it comes to damage, it's not going to be that amazing. And the weapon skill, it's not that amazing either, because it leaves you open way too much and it doesn't give you that much hyper armor. So yeah, not that good of a weapon. Now the Gargoyles, blackblade, we're actually going to have that on C. It has nice scaling on strength. It has a C, D on fade, and you will notice that on holy it has the highest base damage, but that's not going to be that amazing, because again you have the scaling on fade, and this is just a downgraded version of a weapon that we have higher up on this tier. So if you would want to use a weapon similar to this one, there is a much more stronger weapon than this one. The weapon art, it's not that bad, but again, it's just there's nothing that much special about this weapon. Now if we move over to Ordovis' greatsword, this actually is on A tier. It has amazing B scaling on strength, amazing C scaling on fade, and the base damage on physical is actually quite amazing. Also, you can be very versatile while using the weapon skill, because you could just launch the first one, the normal one, and it's fast attacking. It's not going to leave you open, but if you actually feel like you want to kill more enemies, you could charge it up and it's going to deal tremendous amounts of damage. So yeah, Ordovis' sword is actually quite an amazing choice. Now we're getting into the S tier department. The Blasphemous blade. Amazing scaling on all of the stats that it has. So if you would want to be a strength fade build, you could very well do so. If you wanted to be a dexterity fade build, you could totally do so. So it gives you a whole lot of versatility. It also has nice base damage, and the scaling, like I said, it's very amazing. And the weapon art, it's just an upgraded version of the one that the Gargoyle sword has, but it travels a far longer distance. And it also, one amazing thing about this weapon is that once you kill an enemy with this thing, it's going to heal you. And the range, the AoE damage of this thing, like the wave, that wave of damage, it's huge. It's huge. You can kill lots and lots of enemies with this weapon and be healing with it. So, an S. Now we have Maliketh Blackblade. I would very much love to have this one on the S department, but it's just the base damage for an ultra great sword is not that huge. It has a nice B strength scaling and C scaling on fade, but again the holy damage is not that much, so you're not going to be benefiting that much of that C scaling and fade. Also, the weapon skill, it's going to leave you way too open and you cannot cancel it. It also gives you nice hyper armor, but again, it leaves you way too much open for my taste. So yeah, there's that. There are way better. It's still a nice sword. Like, I mean, it's still an A. It's still an A tier. So it's a very good weapon. Now the Eclipse shotel. Oh boy, this one doesn't have that much base damage on either physical or holy, and it doesn't have that huge scaling. It has C scaling on dexterity and C scaling on fade, but the speed of this thing, it's amazing. It's goddamn amazing. The speed that this thing uses, if you would dual wield this thing, like the DPS, the amount of DPS that you can land with this thing, also the weapon skill imbues the weapon, and it also causes that little explosion that, while not huge damage, it's still going to give you a lot of DPS. So this is one of the best weapons that you can have for a dexterity / fade build. Moving on, we have the Magma Worm's Scale Sword. This is an amazing weapon. This is a very strong weapon. It doesn't outclasses the S ones, but the weapon skill, it gives you nice hyper armor. That lava, that magma that's in that, it's going to keep damaging the enemies, and it has amazing base physical damage, so that you will be benefiting quite a lot from that strength B on scaling. And being a curved sword, it's not going to be as low as an ultra greatsword, even though that it is a very heavy weapon. So it is a very good choice for a dexterity / fade build. The Cranial Bezel Candelstand. This is an amazing weapon when it comes to the physical and fire base damage that it has, so that it can benefit quite decently from that C scaling on strength and fade. So it's a very good weapon. It's also not that slow of a hammer. So what actually makes this weapon not be that great is the weapon skill, which is this one. The explosion is the one that is going to give you the most damage, but you can't cancel this animation. So you're going to be stuck in here for ages. The explosion is going to protect you, but those little lava that's raining from the sky, it's not going to protect you, and more often than not, you're going to get hit. On PvP, unusable. This weapon not unusable on PvP. You're going to get punished. You're selling yourself with this thing. On the other hand, we have the Staff of the Avatar. Now the Staff of the Avatar, it's a very strong choice. This is a B tier weapon. When it comes to the base damage that it has, it's amazing. It also has an amazing B scaling. But the most amazing thing about this weapon, it's the weapon art, which is this one. It deals huge amounts of damage, and it also gives you a nice hyper armor. So while you're in that, you're more than likely you're not going to get staggered, you're not going to get interrupted, and you're actually going to, if you're fighting against tons of enemies, just use this thing and you're going to clear them. It's low consuming on FP, so it's an amazing weapon. Moving on, we have the Treespear. Now the Treespear, it's actually quite an amazing weapon. It's a B tier. Physical damage 291. That's huge, dude. The problem is that it has C scaling and dexterity, so that 291 is actually going to be benefiting quite a lot from that, but it has low holy damage and low fade scaling. The amazing part about this weapon is that you could very well use it from behind a shield. So it gives it a bonus, but also to buff yourself, it's not actually going to cost you that much time. It's not going to leave you open that much time. It gives you holy damage and increases the damage of the weapon by 80 points, roughly, I believe 80 points. So it's actually quite amazing. It's a B tier weapon. It's a very good weapon. Now, Siluria's Spear. Most of the people are sleeping on this one. This is an A tier. Amazing spear that you can use behind the shield. It also has 200 on physical damage and holy damage, B scaling on strength, and C scaling on fate as well. But the most amazing part about this weapon is that it's very similar to the I don't remember the name, Ordovis' greatsword. This attack, you can actually be very versatile about it. The area effect is actually quite amazing, but if you charge the attack, it's going to hurt like hell, and it's also going to give you hyper armor. It's a very strong weapon that most of the people are sleeping on, so if you haven't used this weapon, I very much invite you to do so. This is an A tier weapon, it's very strong, it's an amazing weapon for hybrid builds. Vyke's Wall Spear. This is an all-time favorite. This is everyone's favorite right now. Huge physical base damage. B, dexterity scaling. C, faith scaling. It's not that huge, but it's also going to cause madness. This is a weapon that can reach up to 800 AR if you actually use it properly, correctly. You leverage your scaling. You can use this thing from behind a shield to poke the enemy. It's going to stagger bosses that do not suffer from madness. It's going to cause madness on bosses that suffer from madness. And the range of this thing, it's amazing. That's going to cause madness. The main attack, it's going to destroy. It's going to melt your enemies. It can deal like 15k damage. If you manage to hit it, it's going to give you hyper armor. Overall, this is one of the most amazing weapons. This is an S, definitely S tier weapon. Now we have the Gargoyle's Black Halberd. Now this one, there is nothing special about it. It has amazing holy base damage, but that's not going to be leverage because it has the faith scaling. The weapon art is not that amazing and you cannot change it, and I mean, there's nothing special about it. It's just an meh weapon. You could very well use it if you wanted to. You can make it work if you wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend it. Now, the Golden Halberd, on the other hand, it's a very nice weapon, but yeah, there's like nothing that's going to make it stand that much. It has very amazing physical base damage. So for a strength build, you might argue that this is very good. The weapon skill, it's Golden Bow, which is going to increase your damage as well. But if you wanted to do this, then you might as well just get your basic Golden Bow and grab the Black Knight Halberd, which is going to increase much more from that strength. So it's a very good weapon for a strength build, a very good early weapon, but when it comes to later on areas of the game, it gets outclassed very easily. So there's that. Then we have the winged side. Oh boy, S, definitely. This is an S tier weapon. The damage that it has, it's amazing. Like 239 holy damage for a C scaling on fate and C scaling on dexterity for such a fast attacking weapon. I mean, dude, it's amazing. It also causes blood loss build-up, so you could pair this up with some other blood loss build-up weapon, and it's going to melt through the enemies. And also on PvP, this weapon skill, it's going to prevent from invasions. It's going to prevent your enemies from healing, so you could heal yourself. They are not going to be able to do so. It's cunty, like, to heal yourself, but if you're like an honorable person like RPJames, you could get away with not letting your enemies heal. So there's that. Amazing weapon. And let me see what else do we have here. Yeah, to wrap up the video, we have the Grafted Dragon. C scaling on strength, D scaling on fate, really low scaling on fire, so that D is actually not going to do anything. The C scaling might actually do something for your base to 100 damage, but more often than not, most of the cases, you want to use fist weapons or claws to stack status ailments onto your enemies. This one doesn't have any. But it is amazing for one specific little something. These weapons are going to... Let me see if I can wake this little guy right here. Come on, call your enemies. Thank you very much. Did he manage? Yes, he did. If they hide behind a shield, this thing is going to go through it. And also, more than that, the weapon art it has, it's amazing. It causes amazing damage. Take a look at the damage. And it's going to melt the enemies that are in front of you. So this is a B. It loses some points because it doesn't have any kind of status ailments, and like I said, fist weapons are amazing, claw weapons are amazing because they hit really damn fast, so they are the best weapon choices for you to inflict status ailments onto stuff. But yeah, this you see right here on the screen right now, it's the final tier of the weapons. Again, if you find this video useful, if you fell in love with a specific weapon, if I manage to convince you to start a new playthrough or to change your weapon, hit that like button. Again, it took way too much editing to make this video, but I hope that you find the information useful. That being said, I'll see you damn gorgeous, beautiful people in the next one. Do remember that if no one has told you today that you're gorgeous and beautiful gamer, you are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful gamer. I'll be seeing you, gorgeous, beautiful people, in the next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe before you close the door, and I'll see you later. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Goodbye.